this is so incredible. I know that, let me get some of these others on board. I've got a lot of questions, but yeah, maybe just introduce yourself kind of in your own way. And thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. It's been quite an interesting journey for me as far as just trying to figure out, put the pieces together for the past 20 years. I think the main thing here for me that was so difficult was being his grandson, and all of our family members really didn't have a clear idea of what he actually knew, and he didn't really speak about any of he had seen a sighting. I remember being 10 years old and about that age when he sat down, me, my brother, my sister, and said, yeah, I was working radar tower, and this is when I first came in contact with these UFOs. I actually have the original, well, not the original, but a copy of blow up of what he saw. So that's supposedly the UFOs he saw, and he kept copies for his children or his family members and the team that he was with. He said, basically the short of that was that he had to call it in and say, we obviously have contact. And he said, it's Cosmos. And they said, okay, turn everything black. We're going to come. And basically he took all the pictures, but he made sure he had a copy for keeping, and he told his crew to do the same. So that was the first involvement with him. But that's really what I heard as a child. I didn't even know that he was a part of this Disclosure Project, going with Dr. Greer in 2001 to DC. That was another instance where I was about a senior, about to graduate, and my mom was taking him to DC. He stopped by on the way because we lived in Virginia, in central Virginia, and she said, well, I have to take your grandfather up to some event. So that was all I knew. And so it wasn't until later when that came out and it became public that I knew that he was involved with that. So again, it's not like we had all the pieces there and had the validation and confirmation of what he knew. I had to do all the research and, go through his library. I have all his old books that he collected through the years, and then added to them as I saw where the piece, what kind of correlated and what started to add up. So it was a long journey. He died in 2007.
Okay. Right. Okay.
And that was the other point I was going to make. So he had a mini stroke by the time he went to DC in 2001. So he was already starting to lose his, cognitive function, his mental capability was starting to go. So that also put even more doubt and questions in our mind as a family, because he started to really talk about it once he started to kind of degrade over time after that. So it was very challenging for us to really make sense of it.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, his career, what he's been exposed to spans so much time, and it's just like at the heart of, so much since the Second World War. I mean, it's just like all of it. It seems to include all of it. And but what are your thoughts on Stephen Greer? We talked about this in the Q&A earlier today. I don't know that much about him. He's one of the people that I haven't really gotten to know. He doesn't talk about negative ETs. I don't know, like some people don't feel he's legit. He's been associated with like supporting Hillary Clinton, but I know he's also put out a ton of material. Like what are your thoughts, and maybe what are your grandfather's thoughts about Stephen Greer? I
know that through the book that my grandfather actually didn't write the book, but had somebody pretty much transcribe all the information that he was saying at the time. But what he says is it's a clear message, and the Disclosure Project says it, that most of the time when it comes to nuclear bases throughout the U.S. and other places, when we're really about to use these weapons, they come and they say, okay, look, cut it out. Like, we're sending you a clear message. They're not harming us. But yeah, I think in that sense, there's a lot of the testimony from that, from Dr. Greer. All those witnesses have that same type of message and narrative. And I think there's a lot of basis to that. And that's not to say there's not the negative side too. They treat us as if we're one organism, one collective. So if we allow, like, certain leaders at certain times say, we're going to make this treaty like you're like supposedly Eisenhower had done, you know, they're going to certain people back then in those days to say, yes, we agree that you can make contact with us and make these agreements. But I think we've done that with the good and the bad. So I think there's that side to it. So there's a lot of levels involved, and it is confusing. I think Dr. Greer's message is important. I think people need to know that what he's doing with the CE5 contacts, and he's really, it's also your level of consciousness. It's your ability to, what he's doing is basically getting groups together in a loving environment. If you can really put your energy in that space, you can attract those more good, positive ETs. If you're not in that space, you're going to allow other negative forces to come in. I think that's the big part of it. It's our consciousness and it's our level of maturity and development as individuals, really.
Right, right. And I don't know, I don't know about his thing with Hillary Clinton, or I didn't, somebody had brought that up earlier today, but you're talking, you know, there's certain disclosures, and that might have been, I mean, that might have been a long time ago. People don't always necessarily know who's who just yet, but he's played, I mean, he's been the big heavy hitter when it comes to public disclosure more than most. It's like,
yeah, and I think he's trying to push disclosure out, you know, full disclosure. I think he's going to try to work with whatever president at the time is there and get it out. I don't think he's necessarily trying to do anything evil.
yeah, good.
Right reasons. Yeah.
Good. That's awesome. And I'm sure, yeah, people might have questions about that, but there's so much information you have about your grandfather and his story. We have to be very careful what kind of disclosure we're getting. And you mentioned the fake alien invasion. What can you kind of tell us about all the different types of disclosure? And I mean, we've seen through movies and, you know, different things what the fake alien invasion might look like. And there's been some recent documentaries about that that are great. So it's amazing to see on Amazon, like disclosures, like right there. It's like there's multiple documentaries. This stuff is accessible. People are being interviewed.
Yep.
But because you have such a wide range of ability to see multiple things in regards to the different types of disclosures we could be getting, what do you want to say about all that? And the only acceptable kind of disclosure that we need to stay aligned with. I mean, I know we all in our own ways kind of feel into our greater missions and purpose, but yeah, just talk to us about the upcoming sort of disclosure. And
I think disclosure's already happened to an extent. Of course it's happened. It's been years and years, but now you see it. I mean, you see it, Navy officials and everything coming out. I think that I think it's ATIP, what is it, to the Stars Academy? Yeah. I believe that is something to be wary of. And that whole Tom DeLonge following that, thinking like he's getting all the great intel. That seemed very suspicious to me. I think at the end of the day, the final card, that what von Braun has said, and this is part of the disclosure project, is the fact that they're going to use, you know, they used after the Cold War, they used terrorism, other forms of, you know, terrorism, even asteroids. And then he said the final card would be the alien card. And the fact that, you know, Carol Rosin said, who took after him or took care of him at the end, said, you know, he could continually told her that it's all based on a lie. So we really have to be careful because things are speeding up so fast. There's so much information coming at us. And if the elite, the ones in power that want to see, you know, have the control and do these mandatory, whatever it is, keep us in lockdown, or I think the final card they're going to try to play, and even to get Trump out, is possibly this whole alien, you know, this thing they're out to get us. Now we have to have one world government or ways of controlling us, and that's, to me, the biggest thing to just be wary of. I think we're doing our part. I think we just need more people like us, just getting the message out, and it's spreading. It feels like it's taking forever, but we have to continue to do that so people won't get fooled. Once we are able to see, once we see, we can't unsee. So just as more as we can get this information out, the more people won't, you know, be manipulated. So.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the awakening to me is the truth frequency. Once we're aligned with truth, you can't be manipulated or played. And with every false flag event, there are so many researchers and people that disseminate it and decode it and help, people to have the option to look at it through a different lens, but you can't free a slave that's holding on to its chains. And that's the
Right.
problem, is because of the attachment that people have to the falsities when there is an option for them to choose truth. So that almost feels like the bifurcation is that major difference between people. Some will fight hard to keep these programmings alive, even at the cost of their own life and DNA. But I think the numbers of the awakened ones are way greater, and we'll see something happen on a global.
Yeah, just real quick, all I was going to say was people really have to, I would look at Gaia TV as far as like cosmic disclosure. I mean, that's very powerful. The secret space program, as hard as these things are to believe, and I know you've interviewed Tony Rodriguez and some of these others in this 20 and back programs. We have to realize that this is possible, and ever since the Nazis were able to have that technology, and my granddad said, I mean, just think how far advanced we've become to where we can totally mimic a whole advanced civilization, alien race coming to attack us. Like, we have the ability to do that. It's there. It's that advanced, it's that scary that we could be fooled by our own government doing that.
Even in the way the towers fell, right?
Yes. I think we're going to also first disclosure as far as what could happen, what these elite want us to believe. And this goes back to the 12th planet, Zachariah Sitchin, all that he talked about. I thought he was brilliant. I was like, oh my God, this guy has all the answers. You can tell that he had one narrative. When you look at the story, he knew Sumerians obviously had the contact from, they had the whole story of where they came, the Anunnaki, everything else.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I think he was steered to have this narrative, and the elite want to use that narrative once disclosure comes to say, oh, they found, especially the 3 ships in Antarctica, since now the ice is melted, there are 3 ships there, that they're going to say, well, they've been there for a long time, well before us. These are the gods. These are the Anunnaki gods. These are the ones that, and there's an elite bloodline, and only we have the royalty to that bloodline. So now you have to still be under our control. These elite secret societies, those people that think we are the chosen ones to control you, and that's going to be their narrative.